Hello and welcome everyone. We are gathered here today with a sense of hope and solidarity in these otherwise difficult times to celebrate poetry and protest with readings from Sabitha Satchi's debut collection of poetry, Hereafter. Published by Poetry Wala, the book covers her poetry between the years 1999 and 2020. We are joined today by Sabitha herself, along with three other renowned poets, Ari Sitas, Anita Thampi, and Meena Kandasamy. They'll be reading poems from Hereafter, as well as some of their own works. So without much ado, let us begin with our first speaker, Ari Sitas. A renowned poet, dramatist, and sociologist from South Africa, Ari has worked on a range of media that connect art to public life. In the last decade, he has worked extensively with music composers and performers, whether through the Insurrections Ensemble or the Afro-Asia Ensemble, whose latest work, Sea Drift of Songs, has just been released through all media channels. His work, Slave Trades and an Artist's Notebook, a long poem based on the poet Arthur Rimbaud's years in Cyprus and Ethiopia, was published in 2000. This year, his co-authored sociological work, Scripting Defiance, will see the light of the day, and his audio curation titled Wounds of Hands will be broadcast by Chimurenga's Pan-African Space Station. Over to you, Ari.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, whatever the here means these days. I'm not there. I am here. We are here, but this pandemic has really disabled us in fundamental ways. And it's wonderful to be here. And if you recall, Sabitha, we met in 2008. And I remember one of the poems from that first meeting in Dwarka at Ambedkar University. We were supposed to be speaking about poetry and politics. And we're still talking about politics and poetry to these days. And I also recall in 2015, said, where's the book? Where's the book? And you said, it's coming. And 2018, it was still coming. And now it's here. It's here finally, and it arrived, believe it or not, it crossed the ocean. It didn't get wet. It was brought by whales all the way here, and it arrived in one piece, very unusual these days. And I'm delighted to be invited to read some of the poems. I will read two of the poems there. Then I will dare to read something we co-wrote for the Insurrections Ensemble, was a lullaby, and then proceed to read one of my own, and let's see where we go from there, if that is okay with everybody. The first poem is Fleeing to Egypt. You advised me that it's going to be difficult because it is a woman's voice that speaks there, but there's very little that doesn't speak through a woman's voice in the entire collection. So it would have been difficult to read anything else because I'm very attracted to this poem. So let's see where we go. We do not tarry on the treacherous desert sand that swirls about us as we labor towards the land of exiles. The donkey laden with my new bulges and a newborn eternally wailing on my swollen chest above an aching belly, and my husband who is too naive to believe those angelic dreams. Thirst prickles our throats like cacti, closing in on us, populous and sly, and the cold wind slices through us, a scuttling scorpion tail in the moonlight. My birthing sores throb like the heartbeats of my defenseless infant, who dreams yet of manna and honey and smells of myrrh. What can wise men know of a mother's sorrow? News trickled in the cave like dripping icicles of the children massacred in wrath in place of my unknowing son, and I wept the ruthless tears only a young mother can of remorse and relief wrought. Rachel's womb laments in my sleep because they are not, and the cold cave racks me in shivers of panic and dread. Even my dreams thud with the unrelenting hooves that herald Herod, that insecure man who lacked no heirs. It is thus, dear people, that I learned to brace my heart, for I knew sorrow upon sorrow comes in the child's wake, pursuing us to Galilee, Jerusalem, and Nazareth, until I would rock his bruised body on my empty lap. So that was the first one. Then, of course, in 2010, you surprised us with the 13th insurrection of the earthworms, which was rendered by that first insurrections ensemble. And it formed a centerpiece because that album was talking about nature in uprising. Most of the lyrics there were all about nature paying us back for our misdeeds. So it is the 13th insurrection of the earthworms. We till the land and plow the field. We cannot wait till the cows need to come home. No, we breed under your toes and silently chew, masticate the earth, prepare you to precipitate the thunder of your own end. Now near, 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 and the rain pours to eradicate the traces of the thunder. In Lachimada, in Chengara, we beat the chenda and shake the dance. Possessed and angry, the Theam squirms while you tear asunder and drink the blood of this our land, the land of earthworms. In the swamp, among the leeches, we plot and we turn the earth into speech as we speak, not on your TV, but to alter and claim the land we till, the land we churn, the land we, not you, understand. See the dispossessed earthworms advance, advance, the avalanche of our legless march, wingless flight, slowly knowing without you, your knowing at the surveyor's lens, the prospector's sense of the price of this land, when we shake near, near the ground beneath your solid, mechanical, counting feet. And we chew the bow bent with the honey of solidarity, while the pariah tautens his chenda, with the crows and the hornbills and thunderclouds we are drunk on the rain of the insurrection. The puluva strums on her earthen pots ukulele, and the pariah tunes his drums and beats the revolution of the earthworms. Here we advance. Varika, varika, makale. Here comes the insurrection of the earthworms, the ululation of the theams of dispossessed, the revolution, the reign of earthworms, the words, the worms. Thank you. So then, the lullaby. What we constructed together, again through the Insurrections Ensemble, during the time of troubles in Palestine and the so-called Middle East. I don't know where the Middle East is and where the Middle Earth is anymore, but that place called Palestine and Middle East. And we constructed a lullaby around this, which was again both sung and orated, and it's been played this year during the troubles in Palestine. So it is still alive. It is a lullaby. Let me lie to you. Your mother has gone to shops far away, and the buses are broken. The firecrackers you hear are for Eid, my child, and the hole in my heart is to let the spring flowers in. Let me lie to you. The clouds are only dark because heavy with rain. Our hopes are asleep, but we'll wake again. The firecrackers you hear are for Eid, my child, and the hole in my heart is to let the spring flowers in. And the dark clouds, my child, they cover us like a shawl. They're to shield us from the saffron sun, that is all. But mother has gone. See those blood red coats? They're smeared in marigold colors of holy, that is all. The firecrackers you hear are for Eid, my child, and the hole in my heart is to let the spring flowers in. And the flashes of lightning that light up the rubble of our homes are to remind us we're alive, we survive. And the tear in the sky that you see, my child, is to give us a glimpse of another time, is to give us the glimpse of another time. Thank you. And dear Sabitha, something that's going to appear in Poetry Wala quite soon as well. And it's neither light nor sky. And it's a response to Tagore, one of Tagore's poems. But it's going to be unrecognizable after I've finished with it. Neither light nor sky, nor the bast of trees to make paper, but carbon. Statues toppled, their faces prone on earth, a shroud of dust, shrouded city, faint sounds of a mourn, higher loudhalers, some said, higher earmuffs, gloom in death, in dust, in profit, more carbon, sulfur, dioxide, higher 5 million face masks, find the guy ropes for the oxygen tent, the mouthpiece for the gas mask, paper the fractured parts with cigarette filters, keep the windows shut, work in goggles, hide the odor of the sweated undershirt, no flower, no vase of perfumed water, sir. Just my palms astride, quotation marks. Inside them, what we called life. Above, the humming of drones. Above, the wrecked beehive. Below, birds raid the empty dining halls. The city, a ruined temple. The traffic din and horn, a hymn. The frost freezing the ink. The pen sits limp on marble, on stone unformed. Around, burn, slash, burn. Diktats. Keep on stewing perfume in industrial vats. Order the gods back. We need some explanation. Stop the temples riding out in fancy limousines. Impose the census. Give oxygen masks to those who tick the right box, the only box. The rowboat, you said, sir, the very boat, sunk in the vastness called ocean. The freedom of the wave, the freedom from the bondage of words you asked for, we defer. What we have scribbled on cigarette packets needs sails. Only death sails and sails inside us, but at least we need the fiction. We who have made strangers of our sisters, strangers of our brothers, protest. Worship has impoverished the word. Thank you. That's me.
Thank you so much, Ari. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Let us move on to our next speaker, Anita Thampi. Acclaimed Malayalam poet and translator, Anita has translated works by several writers, including Juan Ramon Jimenez, Les Murray, and Murid Barghouti. Her first poetry collection, Mutte Mari Kambol, was published in 2004 to critical acclaim. Her other works include Adagilla Taviyellam and Alapuda Vellam, and a trilingual co-authored collection titled A Different Water. Over to you, Anita.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, please go on, Anita.
Yeah. Hereafter, Sabitha, I really like the title of the book, Hereafter. Inimel, Inimudal, Melal. No, it's a wonderful title, especially in these times, when we really have to shift, our senses and souls to hereafter. Couple of quick words on the poems of this book, after which I'll read 2 or 3 poems as the time allows. First thing I would like to, say is that I like the way Sabitha works in language rather than with language, which is sort of surprising to me because she's bilingual and English is not really her mother tongue. Or maybe it has become her own tongue, the language in which she experiences the world. And also it's a very, very visceral and very bare, truthfully bare language. I can also sense in many poems a certain breezy presence of Malayalam in her poetry written in English. It's not a dominant Malayalam, it's not a dominant spicy Malayalam, but a silent waft of it, which I can sense. And another very interesting thing is her rhythms. I feel her rhythms. I feel connected. I feel it in my blood. I'm sure it comes from our motherland, and I feel connected. So I'll read the poem Grandmother. It seems to have taken shape from the memories of Sabitha's growing up in Kerala. It's a sketch of grandmother, the person, the house, the community, and the larger space of the period, and then the poem returns to the person captured in the old photograph. It's a visual structure. It captures the essence of a memory as in a movie with sharp lines, blurred shape, in the background, and then fading shades, evoking a vision of the past. Grandmother. Into this, the most private of graves, you have no entry. As quiet as she lived, her death came on tiptoe, her clothes neatly folded amidst balls of naphthalene, her diary in which a daughter's call, a niece's visit, a packet of supari were the events that marked one day different from the other. The local gods with whom she conversed in ancient verses kept her no company in an uncomplaining solitude. They too had said adieu, just like the granaries of the Tarawad, those dark rooms fragrant with rice and the children's surprise when they were found out. Just like the black and white celluloid heroes whose Friday changes weekly she caught up with. Just like the fiddle she, impossibly young, was nonchalantly playing in that sepia photograph. Sabitha, I tried to capture this into Malayalam, which I'll share with you later. The other poem which I'll be reading is Chorus of the Mall Rats. Chorus of the Mall Rats. This poem, I felt that it creates an atmosphere, a certain atmosphere with sounds, the repeating quick movements and cries of mall rats. It's a structure in sound. It's otherwise very obvious content, when carried by and built up in sound, become a mad, mall infested with rats. The chorus of the mall rats. Glittering leather shoes of the mall rats, tinkling chatter of the mall rats, with heads bent over cell phones, the mall rats, lighting candles to the stock market, the mall rats. A villa here, an estate there, scream the mall rats. What's the price of rubber today? Enquire mall rats, praying to the crows of pepper, the mall rats. See the teak in Vineyard, offer the mall rats. Come to my pool on my jet plane, say mall rats. My daughter marries a steel tycoon today, boast mall rats. Plutonium under that hill, point out the mall rats. Your devis are devils, break them, chant the mall rats. Wearing glittering shoes, the mall rats, they twitter and cheer up the mall rats, heads bent over cell phones, the mall rats, lighting candles to the stock market, the mall rats. The third poem, Perpetual Stockings. It's one of the two poems on MS. And I like it because it brings, a bodily experience to the core and create a dance out of it, a bleeding red dance. Perpetual Stockings. The first to go numb was the grip of the hip. The first to go numb was the grip of the hip, a persistent loosening fall as the cold slithered down her unsteady legs and encircled her feet in a pair of stockings made of unfeeling ice. Startled, her feet took one step after another, out of step in the unfamiliar beat, 1, 3, 4, 7, 10. The stockings, frozen in place, spun her feet in a tornado of forgetting as her nomadic feet bled a relentless red dance in perpetual stocking. Now I'll read a short poem of mine, Mudi Murichaval. I'll read it in Malayalam. And if time allows, I can read a translation of it. Dania, please tell me if there is time. Mudi Murichaval. അവർ വീട്ടുമുറ്റത്തു നിൽക്കുകയായിരുന്നു. അവർ വീട്ടുമുറ്റത്തു നിൽക്കുകയായിരുന്നു. 4 പതിറ്റാണ്ട് നീണ്ടു മുറ്റി തഴച്ച മുടി മുറിച്ചതേ ഉള്ളൂ. അതിന്റെ അങ്കലാപ്പിൽ അവർ ഞങ്ങളെ നോക്കി. മുടി മുറിച്ചത് നന്നായി, ഇനി കഴുകി ഉണക്കണ്ടല്ലോ, ഇനി ചായം പുരട്ടണ്ടല്ലോ, ഇനി ചീകാനും കെട്ടാനും മെനക്കെടണ്ടല്ലോ, നന്നായി നന്നായി. അതെ നന്നായി, ഞങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞു. ഇനി എക്കാലവും മുടി നീട്ടിയവളായി എനിക്ക് മരിക്കണ്ടല്ലോ, നന്നായി. അതെ നന്നായി, ഞങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞു. ചന്തി വരെ ചാരമുടിയിഴകൾ ഓളം തുള്ളിയിരുന്നിരിക്കണം. ശൈത്യവാസത്തിലെ വെയിൽ ഒപ്പം തുള്ളിയിരുന്നിരിക്കണം. നായ്ക്കുട്ടി മാറി നിന്ന് മിഴിച്ചു നോക്കുന്നു. ഭർത്താവ് ചെമ്മരിയാളുകളുടെ രോമം മുറിച്ചു വിടുന്നു. കുട്ടി പാട്ടുപാടുന്നു. മുടി അഴിച്ചിട്ട ഭൂഖണ്ഡത്തിന്റെ തെക്കേ മുനമ്പിൽ നിന്ന് അവരെ കാണാൻ ചെന്നതായിരുന്നു ഞങ്ങൾ. One who cut her hair. Dania, do we have time for
Yes, please go ahead and read the translation.
Yeah, I'll read a translation and
yes,
you can. One who cut her hair. It's translated by Dr. A.J. Thomas. She was standing in the courtyard of the house. She had just cut off her hair, growing thick and lush over 4 decades. She looked at us, startled. Good that I cut my hair. Now I don't have to wash and dry it. Now I don't have to dye it. Now I don't have to take the trouble of combing and tying it up. Good, very good indeed. Yes, it's very good, we said. Now I don't have to die as someone who wore her hair long, always. Good. Yes, it's very good, we said. The gray strands of hair would have rippled their way down to her buttocks. The winter sunshine too would have rippled alongside. The dog stood to one side, gaping at her. Her husband stood, sharing the sheep. The child was singing a song. We had arrived to see her from the southern tip of the continent that let loose its hair. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sabitha.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much. That was lovely. Let us now hear from the poet herself, Sabitha Satchi, poet, writer, and art curator. Sabitha taught English in Delhi University for 15 years. Her poems have been published in anthologies including Writing Love, an anthology of love poetry, Poetry with Prakriti, Singing in the Dark, and Witness, and several journals, including the little magazine News India, 4 Quarters, Indian Literature, Scroll, and Guftagu. Sabitha is one of the 2 Indian poets in the ongoing Afro-Asia project of South African and Indian poets and musicians, the Insurrections Ensemble, directed by Ari Sitas. She has also been the recipient of awards and fellowships, including the Paul Mellon Fellowship at Yale Center for British Art, USA, the Commonwealth Scholarship, the Charles Wallace Fellowship, and the Vailo Pilli Memorial Sri Rekha Award for Young Malayalam Poets. Hereafter is her debut book of poetry. Over to you, Sabitha.
Thank you, Dania, for that very generous introduction. And thank you, Ari, Anita, for your fantastic readings of my poems. I wish I could just listen to you guys and not have to read at all. Thank you, Ari and Anita, for this wonderful evening of creative fellowship, of generous creative fellowship. And of course, thank you, Indian Cultural Forum, Dania, Geeta Hariharan, and the Newsclick team for putting all this together and organizing this event around hereafter, as well as a kind of solidarity through poetry. I'll now read a few poems from the book. Well, this is the book. The first, well, I'm sure it's kind of coming as a mirror image on screen, but yeah, the first one I'll read is titled Tupal Salaam. I do have actually quite a number of poems which are addressed to other poets, dead or alive. This one is Tupal Salaam. Everyone over 40 should be shot dead, wrote a poet in 1969. The 50-something Jewish poet heard it in 1970 and resolved to drown himself in the Seine. The Seine flowed on 50, 30, 60, 40, 20. Sweet Seine, flow softly until I end my song. Sweet Seine, sing softly until my poem soars. Softly, still softly, candles flickered. Christ, Jehovah, Christ, Jehovah. Whether new or old, testaments will be testaments. A soldier kept counting the heads in some concentration camp. 60, 10, 30, 50, 70,021. And you, my later roses. Softly, still softly, flowers bloomed in the cemetery. Carl, Rosa, Paul. Be it genocide or suicide, death is death. In a rain of black umbrellas, the priest chanted Amen. Outside, death. 50, 90, 40. Sweet Seine, flow softly until I end my song. Sweet Seine, sing loudly until my poem flares. Death, scattered candlelight, roses, roses. The second one that I'll read is from my sequence called Letters to Father. So this is, it's a whole sequence of 8 poems. I'll read 1 or 2 from it. This is Fragment 3 from Letters to Father. Kites, Fragment 3, Kites on 15th August. Kites flying overhead, Father, like only kites can do, controlled, yet soaring beyond boundary walls, yet entangled with each other, terminal. And we must still sing the freedom songs, the voice hoarse, the lines crooked, tuneless. In her white handspun and broken spectacles, I remember grandmother. One more from that sequence. This one is called Storms, and it's actually kind of written in a way in response to one of my father Sachidanandan's most quoted and most rapturously remembered poems in Malayalam. In Malayalam, it's titled Marayuda Nanartham, which translates as synonyms of rain. And Sachidanandan's poem celebrates the southern Indian monsoon in all its, myriad and exquisite sounds and scents, and it's very, very evocative and synesthetic almost. So this is actually this is a daughter's response to that poem. Fragment 4, Storms. Let us de-romanticize storms, Father, unlyric them, and unlearn the ways of how birds scatter and winds gather and yakshis descend with rain's long hair. When the sparks blow the circuit board and the water pools on the table soaking the spines of books unread, and with a mop, your back bent, you wipe in a furious sweep, trying to dry the dyed spines as you hear afar the gale smashing the windscreen of your car, and you slip on the damp floor, and all you can ever think of is how not to be the goddess of your fragile home. See it bursting at its brittle, spittle-bitter seams, and long for that rust-red room of your own, the blues. These too, Father, are the many synonyms of rain. The next one, I'll also read actually one from, Ari already read one from the sequence, which is titled Travels in the Hereafter. Now this whole sequence came after a journey to Egypt. And the one that Ari read was in the voice of Mary. I mean, there is of course the biblical episode of Mary and Joseph fleeing to Egypt with infant Jesus. The one I'll read now is called The Queen Who Would Be King. Now, on the banks of the river Nile, there is a very unusual temple. This is a temple that is that's called the Temple of Hatshepsut. When you go there, what you see is rows and rows of sculptures of Queen Hatshepsut. She was the lone woman pharaoh of Egypt, and so there are scores of sculptures of Hatshepsut on the front of the temple itself. And what strikes you is that she is portrayed with a beard. The queen who would be king. At the doorways to the temple, a bearded woman guards the gods. Many bearded women, extravagant mysteries in stone, endure elegant and imposing with disdain for the puzzled. O Hatshepsut, the queen who would be king, she of styluses and swords who styled herself thus, obeying the rules of the ruled in which only kings figured. Hatshepsut, you still could not bend the adamant reality with your mythopoeic metal. Your name on the obelisks stays erased by the treacherous orders of the one who came after you, the one who could not bear without bristling with impotent anger and greed your queer attitude of command, your unmaker, your husband's son. The next one, I'll read one poem from. This is also written for, even though it was never really used in the project, but this was written in the context of the insurrection's songs. So this is actually written as a song that can be sung. Here it's the killers who are speaking, and now that we do have killers on our streets, I think unfortunately, this is a poem that stays relevant. It's a song. The Killer's Song. We come to wait for all of you to forget. The river is in spate, the river of blood hate. A fanged moon is on the rise. The fields are just plowed. We come to wait for the rush of black clouds. The spades are laid low from turning the soil red. The trees cast shadows on the fresh graves of the dead. We come to wait for the names of the fallen. Arising from the shadows, they are fast multiplying. We come to kill in a caressing shower of shrapnel and bombs. You have nowhere to turn, nowhere to go. The next poem was actually written in the aftermath of the terror attacks that happened in France in November 2015. Although, I mean, you will find that it's not just, it's a poem that brings in many places into Paris. No, do not go there. No, do not go there. The pendulum of the basilica clock is a bomb that will go off the moment you step on the bell tower's hunchbacked staircase, winding its way to the sky, crisscrossed by drones over Beirut and Aleppo and Baghdad, cities of fevered fairy tale dreams, now but cries of John the Baptist's head on a platter, dusted with the pain of the apostate and the infidel. No, do not go there. The refugee child's shoes, stained by the perilous salt water of the ocean she tried to cross, to find a home elsewhere, where there is no war, as they play their war games only outside their borders, pressing the buttons of kill and burn and smash and bomb and kill till the war reluctantly comes to their cafes and a football match turns bloody and music stops playing the tunes of liberté, égalité. There was never fraternity in any case, not even a pretense to love your neighbor, but kill the joy of play and sport in the schools of Kabul and Gaza and Cairo and Jerusalem, where every supper could be the last, where every candle is lit for the dead, where every prayer is a cry of the living, where every string is tuned to a requiem, where every utterance is protest and poetry of hikmet, of darwish, of fairs, of mir. Do not go there. If I have time, I would actually like to take a bit of a break from these gloomy poems and read one funny poem, in case you think that I write only only political or glum or tragic poems. So this one is it's a bit of a comic poem. It's called I'm just reading this for comic relief before I go on to the last one. It's a short poem called In This Issue. In this issue, the 18-meter long romantic poem by the 47-year-old promising poet. The long-awaited 25-kilo novelette by the leading novelist with 1 foot in the grave. An interview with the auto rickshaw driver who plays a cameo in TV serials, driving the heroine to the hero's house, about the representational value of subalterns. A candid interview with the wife poet of the above-mentioned budding poet about his untamed creative processes. Digital poetry and market ploys. A few thought-provoking thoughts by the hot-selling Marxist thinker. The Weekend book reviewer presents languid and heavy-bottomed Latin American short stories in his usual arousing manner. Only 15 rupees for 1 issue. $20 for foreign $20 for foreign subscribers. Now I'll go on to the last poem. The last poem that I'll read, this is called Living, Dying. Living is not an art. Dying is. When muscles start to slacken and the skin begins to sag and all you want is a couch to curl up and sleep in and a quilt to keep you warm and snug in your lonely forlorn flat and a mug of hot cocoa and your Calvino to wake up to and placid waters from the balcony randomly gazed at below, with their surface now glinting, now mellow, now glinting like a clock, or your heart picking its way into, you hope, a serene sunset without kicking your way out of words and routines of the coffee cup and lusty nicotine and the Proust you always meant to catch up on, so that you thought you could remember all the things past in their dying embers and things yet to come, such as the wind scattering your last discrete atoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabitha. Thank you so much. I think, Meena, we are facing some technical issues with Meena's connection, so she won't be able to join us. May I please request all of you to perhaps read another poem each, if you guys don't mind. Ari, can we begin with you? Would you like to read another poem?
Dania?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice if they read their own poems, right?
Yes, definitely. Maybe even sing, Ari. Perform, give us a little performance, if you don't mind. And unmute yourself, if you can. Ari, you're muted. Can you please unmute yourself? Yes.
Okay, this was a surprise, so I'm busy trying to page through and find a poem that can actually speak to the occasion.
Anita, perhaps you can also take this time to
Yeah.
think of a poem that you'd want to read.
Okay.
Yes, Ari.
All right. This is the closing poem of a collection called the Vespa Diaries. And it was a book that accumulated my impression from every corner of South Africa, that kind of landscape. And after my heroic Vespa travel through the country, I'm heading back home. And wretched land, I know you. You took me in, joyless, wretched land, lit starkly, wind-lashed, land of toppled sculptures, face planted in the grass. Chains, discord, bowed land. I'm sitting in your lap, drinking star juice, puzzling still over the math. How were the foundations laid on the void, on the blood also of the slaughtered goat? And how long does it take for the dead to ripen? I bring you from this journey, keen eardrums, gestures, smoke signals, blunt sounds, very blunt. No one has cut the bamboo, no sigh, no consonantal click, ripped land, ripped timber, ripped from forest people, a sack full of skin, of stars. Your workshops have tried to snuff out beauty, wretched land. How long does it take for the dead to ripen? I return alone. On the wheel, still traces of jacaranda petals. In my lungs, the scent of the wild daisy, and in my eyes, herons preening on the wheat field. I gave color to the flower, and a strange tune to the makeshift flute. I painted each sunshine red. I painted the landscape blood red. I felt the storms, hail. I counted the distress and hunger. I weighed up enemy and friend, and I sent messages that went nowhere. It just kept me good company by the campfire. I lost 2 teeth. I trumpeted loud in the lunchtime haze. I learned how hearts are iron and manganese. I iced my brain. My memory was filled with poems. I prophesied crops. I harvested them alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. Anita, did you think of something too? You're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me read a short poem of Sabitha first, which I like, before I can read one, if time is
Sure.
fine.
Sure.
It's titled Hoodwinking. To call a flower a heart, to call the heart a stone, to call the stone hate, to call love a red rose, it's all just a hoax. To call the word a sword, to call the sword control, to call a wife a friend, and name a friend an other, to call washing soap mother, and a superstar a colossal star, a colossal car, to shamelessly make level home and land is humbug, to call them us, to say I am you and you are me, and fraudulently metaphorize thus. I'll read a short poem of mine. It's titled The Lost Needle. കളഞ്ഞു പോയ സൂചി. വെറുതെ തല്ലുണ്ടാക്കി നട്ടുച്ചയ്ക്ക് കടലിൽ താഴ്ത്തി സൂര്യനെ. വീണു പോയി സൂര്യന്റെ ഒടുവിലെത്ത സൂചിയും. കടലിൽ തപ്പ്. കടലിൽ തപ്പെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ കളഞ്ഞുപോയ സൂചി തിരിച്ചു കിട്ടുമോ? മണലിൽ തപ്പ്. മണലിൽ തപ്പെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ കളഞ്ഞുപോയ സൂചി തിരിച്ചു കിട്ടുമോ? മടിയിൽ തപ്പ്. മടിയിൽ തപ്പെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ കളഞ്ഞുപോയ സൂചി തിരിച്ചു കിട്ടുമോ? മിണ്ടാതിരിക്ക്. മിണ്ടാതിരിക്കെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ കളഞ്ഞുപോയ സൂചി തിരിച്ചു കിട്ടുമോ? ഛേന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ കളഞ്ഞുപോയ സൂചി തിരിച്ചു കിട്ടുമോ? കഴിവരുടെ മോളെ. കഴിവരുടെ മോളെ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ കളഞ്ഞുപോയ സൂചി തിരിച്ചു കിട്ടുമോ? മീശ പിരിക്കണ്ട, ആകാശത്തേക്ക് നോക്ക്. ദാ ആ വെണ്ണൂലിഴയുടെ മറ്റേ തുമ്പത്തുണ്ട് കളഞ്ഞുപോയ സൂചി. ഏത് കരിമ്പാതിരാവിലും പെണ്ണുങ്ങൾക്ക് പൂ തുന്നുന്ന തിങ്കൾ കൂർമുന. It's translated by Dr. A.J. Thomas. The title is The Lost Needle. After a needless brawl, the sun was sunk in the sea at noon, and the last needle of the sun too fell far, far away. Grope about in the sea. If you say grope about in the sea, will you get back the lost needle? Grope about in the sand. If you say grope about in the sand, will you get back the lost needle? Grope about in your lap. If you say grope about in my lap, will you get back the lost needle? Keep quiet. If you say keep quiet, will you get back the lost needle? Che. If you say che, will you get back the lost needle? Shh. If you say hush, will you get back the lost needle? Kazhuvarda mole. If you call me Kazhuvarda mole, will you get back the lost needle? Don't twiddle your mustache. Look up at the sky. There, it's there at the other end of the white twine. There is the lost needle, the sharp point of the moon crescent that strings flowers for females even at the darkest midnight hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anita. Sabitha, would you also like to read another poem, perhaps?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'll read a poem which is not there in the book, which is from a sequence I'm still writing. So this is a sequence that originated in the pandemic.
Sounds great.
And it's the whole sequence is actually still a work in progress. So this is the first time reading this particular poem anywhere at all. The series itself is titled Excavations. And the first, so this is actually the first from the series. Excavating a letter. What do we tell you when we awake tomorrow, little one? That there once was a dawn that burst upon with bird song, that there was a color we called green, oh, so many shades of it, in the forest near the river that used to shimmer with fish tails. that the water would chime to us in eternal ebb and flow, high and low notes splashed by the thin oars of a sharp boat, carrying fishnets at daybreak, ferrying children in the mauve dusk. That we broke bread with our neighbors and uttered a prayer that came easy on our purple lips, that would pucker up for a kiss as we held each other, and the night sighed. And we thought we would never die. Thank you. Thank you,
so
Dania,
much.
for that extra opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sabitha.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Ari. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I would like to bring an end to this wonderful session of poetry reading with a few lines by poet Keki Daruwala on Hereafter. Only a gifted poet, assured of her abilities, would attempt to tease the contours of a poetic line, to coax it out of its taut shell. Stuck in my memory are the lines from an anti-war poem, where every supper could be the last, where every candle is lit for the dead, where every prayer is a cry of the living, where every string is tuned to a requiem. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you.